Hello everybody, this is the very first video in the Maya Foundations series of videos. In this video we are going to go ahead and open up Maya, we're going to go ahead and navigate the home screen, the actual main viewport scene of Maya, we're going to look at a few other menus, we're going to spawn in some primitives, and we are going to learn how to properly save our scenes. So first of all, I just want to bring your attention to the fact that we are using Maya 2026 right here, and that these videos are going to be mainly about Maya 2026, but it should be noted that Maya does not change all that drastically from version to version. So anything that you see here for the 2026 series of videos should still be applicable if you're using Maya 2027, 2028, and so on and so forth, at least for the next few years, but probably for a decent chunk of time, I would probably wager, considering just how little Maya has changed from version to version in the previous few years. So let's go ahead and double click and actually open up Maya 2026. We're going to get this license verified screen as things start loading in for Maya 2026, or for any version of Maya really. It should be noted that this is usually going to take a while, especially if you're trying to open up scenes that already have lots of stuff in them, a lot of work in them already. This will probably take a little bit longer to open. That's okay. That's normal. Do not be alarmed if it does take a while for this to open. That is just Maya doing its thing. In our case, we're opening up a blank scene, so it shouldn't take that long. Here we go. We are at the home screen. We have the ability to ensure that this home screen never pops up again for us if we want to. I'm going to keep it. I've gotten used to it. You're welcome to nullify this if you want to and get rid of it. That's dealer's choice. That's up to you. Here on the home screen, I just want to bring your attention to the fact that we have some stuff, some articles and videos that are at your disposal here if you want to, including some learning videos. That's interesting to take a look at if you would like to. This is stuff that you can look at in your own time, though. We're just going to stay with recent for now, and we're going to discuss what we have here. So this is where our saved scene files would go if we had any. We don't, since this is our very first video. In order to actually get into Maya itself, there's actually three ways. We can click the blue button here with New Scene, we can click New up here, or we can click Go to Maya here. It doesn't really matter which one of these we click. I usually like clicking Go to Maya first, so let's just go ahead and do that and actually get into Maya proper. This is the actual proper real Maya right here. And we have a few panels set up here. We have three-panel structure right here. We have the middle, which is going to be our viewport. This is the big gray area with a big grid right here in the middle. This is the viewport. We have our outliner over here. This is where you will be able to see all the things that are in the viewport actually listed out, actually written out. That's what the outliner is for. Very useful, especially for organizing scenes. We're going to be using the outliner a lot throughout the course of our videos. And finally, over here, we're going to have information on the actual objects themselves. So here we get a list of all the objects that are going to be in the viewport. Here is where you can actually see anything that you actually make or spawn in. And here is where all the setting information is going to be for those objects here. So that's the brief overview of what we're looking at whenever we open up a blank Maya scene for the first time. Next thing I want to bring your attention to is going to be actually where my name is, right up here. Namely, I want to bring your attention to the Manage License option here, and we're just going to crack that open. This is where you can actually double check and ensure that you are using the appropriate license, the appropriate version of Maya. I'm currently using a student version, and you should probably be using a student version as well, as those are repeatedly extendable as long as you provide adequate proof that you are, in fact, a student, which if you're watching this video, you probably are. So it's worth your time to ensure you're using the student license. You can also change the license type up here by going to the proper steps. I believe I have put videos up on the Moodle platform to help you out with using this menu if you actually need to. But most of the time, once you actually set up your Maya, your Autodesk account and install Maya, if you've provided adequate proof that you are a student, then this should probably automatically be student. But again, it's worth your time just to navigate up here and just double check for yourself. All right, enough preamble. Let's actually get into actually using the program itself. And the first thing I want to do for that is actually go up here to Workspace. And I want to just double check and make sure that Reset Current Workspace isn't grayed out. If it's grayed out, like Delete Current Workspace right here, then you don't really have anything to worry about. But if it isn't grayed out, if it's something you can actually click on it is worth your time to actually click on it and reset the current workspace to its default layout, as it explains to you when you hover the mouse over the actual option. So this is just a method to ensure that all of us are looking at the exact same thing whenever we work on, whenever we do one of these videos, right? In reality, you can change the workspace to any of these default presets that you want, like sculpting or UV editing. This is a useful one when we actually get into UV editing later in the semester. Rendering standard. But for the most part, when it comes to workspace, I'm going to be in the general workspace, and I'm going to make sure that it is reset to its default layout every time before I get started, just to ensure that we're all looking at the same thing. Now, in the spirit of all of us looking at the same thing, let's actually go up here and take a look at the shelves. The shelves are up here. They're these curves, polymodeling, sculpting, surfaces, UV editing, rigging, animation, rendering, so on and so forth. Plenty of little shelves here that give us helpful little shortcuts to start doing things in the Maya viewport itself. So let's actually go ahead and go to polymodeling. Let's select the second one right here, which is the cube option, and let's generate a cube into our viewport. As we can see here, the viewport itself actually lets us see whatever we have created. The outliner lists out for us whatever is in the scene, in this case, that P-cube, that polycube that has been spawned in via the poly modeling shelf. And here on the right, we have our channel box, which just gives us basic information about the location of the cube. So these first three are the translate. This is the actual location of the cube in the 3D space, in this case, 0, 0, 0, or the exact origin, the exact center of our space. We have the rotate X, Y, and Z, which lets us know if the cube has been rotated by any degree variable that we can think of, and scale XYZ, which lets us know how large the cube is in the space. We can change this to the attribute editor, which gives us more options for cube information and settings that we can play with in order to make the most out of this cube and do a bunch of things with this cube. And we also have access to the modeling toolkit right here. Modeling toolkit is something that we will get into in a later video. So let's actually go back and go to the channel box and layer editor here. We also have these inputs, which gives us more options, including width, height, and depth of the cube, and subdivision, width, height, and depth, which is something that we will get into when we get into the modeling toolkit in a later video again. So for now, we have our cube. That's great. I'm going to keep it selected, that way we can see it very easily. We have our cube, and that's great. How do we actually navigate the viewport itself? Because it's all well and good to have this cube here, but if we can't actually look at it across all 360 degrees, there isn't that much that we can really do effectively in this program. So let's go over how to manipulate the viewport camera and how to actually navigate the viewport space. Right now, I'm going to give you 4 shortcuts that you can use. Every single shortcut that I give you in these videos, there is going to be a document on the Moodle platform that you can use, that you can open up to reference all these shortcuts themselves. So when I give you a shortcut like this very first one, where I hold Alt on the keyboard and then hold the left mouse button to tumble the camera around, that is going to be in a document for you in the Moodle platform that you can open up at any time to review this shortcut. So right now, this shortcut is just holding down the Alt key and just holding the left mouse button and just moving the mouse around. Here we go, tumbling our camera view around. Great. Holding the Alt button on the keyboard and now the right mouse button instead of the left mouse button, we can zoom our camera in and out by moving our mouse around, holding Alt and holding the right mouse button. And finally, if we continue to have the Alt key held down and we hold the middle mouse button, then now we can pan the camera around in our viewport. So holding Alt and the left mouse button lets us tumble our view. Holding Alt and the right mouse button lets us zoom in and out. And holding Alt plus the middle mouse button lets us pan our camera, not tumble. Tumble is the first one. This lets us pan our camera around. And if we're not holding anything on the keyboard, we can scroll our mouse wheel to zoom in and out, like so. Now let's go ahead, and we don't have our cube selected anymore. Let's go ahead and just zoom the camera way out and move our camera way out of the way, maybe do some tumbling. just get really, really far and really, really away from anything that resembles our scene. So here we are. Now we are completely lost. We don't know where our cube is. I moved the camera really, really far away. What do we do in this scenario? There's a few things that can be done. The first method is by navigating over to the view cube here and just clicking this little arrow right here and just clicking on default view, and that gets us back to our regular default view. Second thing we could do is, again, zooming very far away from the cube, going really far away. Oh no, we don't see the cube anymore. What do? If we navigate over to our outliner and just select the cube, then now we can just press F on our keyboard, and the camera will center in on the object that you have selected in the outliner, in this case, that cube. Now back in our default view, I've actually gone ahead and hidden the view cube and also deleted a couple of shelves from our shelves up here, because I want to discuss what happens if you don't have access to the view cube here or the shelves here. You would think, hopefully, that you can just go to the workspace and reset the current workspace and everything would be back the way it is. But the view cube and shelves are not things that are dependent on your workspace. Those are things that you have to bring in via separate means. So let's actually go ahead and focus in on bringing back our shelves first. I got rid of two of them. I got rid of the first two, the curves and the poly modeling shelf, just for the purpose of this demonstration. Again, these elements don't reset when you're resetting a workspace, so it's worth your time knowing how to bring this stuff back if it disappears on you or you accidentally delete it for whatever reason. So let's go here to this little settings icon to modify the items or modify the shelf, and let's actually go into load shelf. Now I'm going to drag in this window here. We are going to want to find two things that we want to open up. We want shelf underscore polygons. I'm going to open that up. That's going to bring back our poly modeling shelf here at the end. And we're going to open up load shelf again. This time I want shelf underscore curves, and that's going to bring up our curves shelf from before. Now, in order to organize the shelves that are up here, you can't just hold the shelf and drag it around. That's not going to work. You're going to want to go into the shelf editor here in these shelf settings. And here in the shelf editor, now we can use these buttons here to navigate our shelves to whatever place you want them to be. And I'm going to put the curves back first. I'm going to select poly modeling, and I'm going to put the poly modeling back in second, just so that everything was the way it was when we first opened up Maya. So now I'm going to go down here to save all shelves. Perfect. Now we have our curves and poly modeling back where they belong, but the view cube is still missing. Where can you go to find the view cube if you don't already see it here? You can go up to this menu here, display. You can go to heads up display, and you can just go down this menu of things, some of which are already checked off, and you just want to check off view cube right here, and that's going to bring back your view cube. So wonderful. Now we can go ahead and tumble our camera around. We can reset our view. We can also do this if we want to reset to the previous movement that to reset to the default view anytime we want to. So we don't have to go into this menu and just press default view. We can just tumble our camera around, zoom away, whatever, and just press this little symbol right here and just go back to our default view automatically. The next thing we should discuss is our toolbox. Now the toolbox is over here on the left side. We have a few options to pick and choose from, some of which we'll be using more than others. This first one is the select tool. Now the select tool has a shortcut in order to get back to this anytime you want. It's Q. We'll demonstrate that in just a little bit. The select tool essentially is just selecting an object on the viewport. So in this case, I'm selecting the cube. I can also select an object from the outliner. Simple enough, not much to it. Let's bring our attention over to the fourth tool right here, the move tool. It has a shortcut W, so let's actually select the move tool right now. And real quick, before we start messing around with the move tool, let's actually press Q on our keyboards to shortcut back over to the select tool or to select mode. So Q is for select mode, W is for move. Now with move selector, we can actually go ahead and start manipulating our cube. So far, all we've been doing is manipulating the camera in the scene, but now let's actually manipulate the object itself. So let's go ahead. I'm going to press F to zoom in just so we can get a nice view of our cube here. And I'm going to start moving around by using the arrows. We can move around across the Z, across the X, up and down the Y. We can move 2 axes at a time with these planes that are here. Generally don't recommend doing this normally, but just for demonstration purposes, these tools are here. You can use them if you want. And there we go, plenty of movement. All of that movement being recorded here in our channel box. So now the cube is no longer at the origin. Now it's at 0.417, 1.184, and negative 0.793. We can change these values ourselves by just hovering the mouse over and just moving it around itself. This is very far away right now. Changing the Y. Very high above, put it there, and change the Z. And of course, not only can we just hover our mouse, we can also just type in values. So we can type in 4, we can type in 0 to put it back into 0. We can type in, I don't know, let's type in 6 here. And let's type in 12 there. Why not? Just to move our cube around a little bit. So there you go. That is the move tool. And if you ever do an action in Maya that you don't like, you can just press Ctrl-Z. That is the shortcut for undoing an action. So undoing certain actions. There is a limit on how many undos you can do before Maya doesn't let you undo anymore. I believe it's about 20 actions that you can undo, but there you go. Ctrl-Z to undo a previous action. And now our cube is back in the center. Okay, let's go into the next tool, which is going to be the rotate tool right here. The shortcut for the rotate tool, it says right there, is E. So W for move, Q for select, and E for rotate. And just like with the move tool, let's go ahead and just manipulate these values here. We can use these little lines here, these little curved lines to rotate our cube around. We can select the space in between these lines to rotate our cube across all axes at once. This is very imprecise, but it is a way of rotating your cube if you wanted to. But again, it's very imprecise. As you can see, the values here jump really all over the place when you try to rotate from in between certain lines. And let's see, we can also, like that blue one there, to rotate across all axes at once as well. Generally, whenever you use the rotate tool, I'm going to just go ahead and select all 3 of these in the channel box and just type in 0 to get them all back to default base 0. Whenever you want to rotate something in Maya, I would recommend doing it just 1 axis at a time. And most of the time, I would recommend just typing in the value here in the channel box. So if you want something precise like a cube rotated at a 45-degree angle, you would just type in 45 degrees in rotate X. And if I wanted to have it 45 degrees via all axes, I would just type in 45 for all 3 values, and now it's rotated by 45 degrees across the X, the Y, and the Z. So excellent. Let's go into the last of these tools that we're going to be looking at in this video. Again, there are multiple tools here. There are 4, 5, 6, but these 4, the select, the move, the rotate, and finally the scale, which the shortcut for is R. I'm going to go ahead and get these values back to default 0, just so we can see this better. The select, the move, the rotate, and the scale are the main tools that we're going to be worrying about as we work in the as we work in these videos. So let's see. We have the scale tool. As you can imagine, scale tool allows you to increase the size or decrease the size of your objects. If you select this yellow cube here in the middle, it's going to uniformly scale your object. So all 3 axes will raise or lower at once, uniformly, all together at the same time. We can also non-uniformly scale by just selecting either the green cube, the red cube, or the blue cube to scale by 1 axis at a time, or we can select these planes here to scale by 2 axes at a time. X and Y here, X and Z here. Wonderful. And we can also rotate this a little bit just to take advantage of what we've been doing. So let's go ahead and make this a clean 45, 45, 45, and let's move this around a little bit as well, just so that we can really say that we have used all of the movement tools at our disposal when it comes to Autodesk Maya. And again, these shortcuts, Q for select, W for move, E for rotate, and R for the scale tool. Now, as I reset the values back to their original defaults, just for the next thing that I want to demo, you will notice that while the translates defaults are 0, 0, 0, and the rotates defaults are 0, 0, 0, if you try doing 0, 0, 0 with scale X, Y, and Z, the primitive will just fully disappear in on itself. The default scale value for any primitive is 1 by 1 by 1. That'll bring it right back to the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this cube back a little bit. I'm actually going to spawn in a second object now, because we've been working with the cube long enough. Let's bring in a sphere. And let's make this cube a little bigger. Let's say I want to put this sphere on top of this cube. Definitely possible to do just by, freestyling it, eyeballing it. As you can see, I can get it up here. Pretty okay, but it's a little bit inconvenient working in this three-dimensional view for this task that would really be a lot easier if I could just look at it from 2 axes. So let's do it again, but in orthographic view. So I'm going to undo this action with Control-Z, 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 get it back over to where it was in the beginning, and let's discuss what you can do to change your view from perspective, which is what we're looking at right now. This is the perspective cam. You can actually see the name right down here, perspective, and change this into an orthographic view. If we press space on our keyboard, you can see that we have this 4-panel structure here, and we can work within these 4 panels in order to much more easily do what we just did. So I can just use the 4-panel structure to move my sphere over and more easily place it on top of the cube without having to do any much guesswork. And I can maybe place it like this so it feels like it's a little bit embedded like that. And there we go. A much easier time of placing my sphere on top of my cube. Now I kind of just glazed over that, so let's do it again. This time let's bring in a torus. Yeah, let's bring in a torus here. And maybe I can play with the inputs a little bit. Subdivision axes, we can make it like this. Subdivision height, we can make it like this. Just to play with it a little bit. Radius, sure, we can make it 0.75. Section radius, so let's make this 2. Yeah, sure, we can keep that too. Anyway, let's go back to what I just glazed over before with this 4-panel view. So I'm pressing space on my keyboard to engage the 4-panel view right now. And if I wanted, and now I can work within this 4-panel view in order to more properly place this torus where I want to, which in this case, I want to actually just kind of put it around the sphere here. So let's, and as long as my mouse is hovering over a specific panel, then I can work in the specific panel and manipulate the camera of that panel as I've been doing with just the perspective view. So I am just holding down Alt, left mouse button to tumble my camera, right to zoom in and out, pan to middle mouse button to pan. And now I'm going to press R so I can scale this torus in and just make it sort of a little base ring here and just change over to move with a W key and just sort of place this there and click off just to double check and see how it looks. And that looks fine. Maybe I want to place the torus more as a crown for the sphere. So I can just move it up, and it's easier to do so in an orthographic view such as this. Now, in this 4-panel view, I can press space while my mouse is hovering over any of these panels, and that suddenly becomes my main view for the viewport. So now this top orthographic view is my main view, but if I press space again, I go back to the 4-panel layout, and I can press front and make this my main view and work within the front view if I want to. I can press space again and work within the side view as my main view if I wanted to, or go back and work within my default perspective view if I'm happy with my orthographic with my orthographic work. Alternatively, you don't actually have to press space at all in order to get to these 4 panels in order to work in orthographic mode. Alternatively, and let's bring in something else. Let's bring in a cone now. Alternatively, I can go here to my view cube if you have this enabled, if you can actually see it. I'm just going to click orthographic view, and now I am in the front orthographic view. I can manipulate this and go to the right orthographic view, go to the back orthographic view, the top, the bottom, right, front, and just work from here. And whenever I'm done working in the orthographic view, which let's go ahead and put this cone, let's go over to the side now, to the right. Let's go ahead and place this there. Very easy to work in an orthographic view, by the way. It's much easier to do this in an orthographic view than it is in 3D, than it is just in the basic perspective view. And let's grab all of this and let's move it over to the center. This is stuff that we will be getting into more in future videos. Just want to give you a little preview. So yeah, okay. So let's say I'm happy with this. And I'm going to click this arrow again and go back to an unclick orthographic view. And now we are back in our 3D perspective view here. So you can reach orthographic view by manipulating the view cube and just selecting that you want to go into orthographic view and then working within that view. So in this case, let's go ahead and center this by selecting the sphere and just pressing F in order to zoom in the camera, center the camera there. That way my camera is better placed for me to work. And whenever I'm done, whenever I'm tired working in orthographic view, I just click this arrow, check off orthographic view again, uncheck it this time, and I'm back into my 3D default perspective view. Or I can just press space and go into one of these views, the top, the front, or the side, anytime I want, and work within those orthographic views. All right, let's generate some more primitives, why not? And instead of just using the shelf, let's find another way to generate these primitives, because maybe you're in a scenario where you don't have the polymodeling shelf and you don't want to bring it back up into your shelf selection here for whatever reason. Another way to generate your primitives is by going to Create, Polygon Primitives, and then selecting a primitive from here. Let's bring in a cylinder now. Can't see the cylinder because it's going to be generated right here in the middle. Let's just bring it out. Let's non-uniformly scale this. Why not? Create something kind of weird here. Why not? I would encourage anyone who is using Maya for the first time, by the way, to just generate some primitives, play around with the scene, see what you can get away with, see what you can't get away with. It's one of the best ways to get started working in a program like Maya. It's just, generate some stuff. Let's go to Create Polygon Primitives. Let's bring in a plane now, because we can use a ground, I think, to just make some stuff and, just see what you can do and what you can't do. I went ahead and uniformly scaled this plane, so we have a nice big ground here. I'm going to select my cube. I'm going to hold Shift and select my sphere, my torus. Let's change over to the Move tool. My torus, there we go. My cone, my cylinder. Let's push it up. There we go. Moving it around, just using all the basic tools that we have been working with in this very first video. The only new thing I've done is selecting multiple things at once, which you can do either by just selecting an object and then holding Shift and selecting another object, or you can just marquee select by holding the left mouse button and dragging to select multiple things at once, or you can just select multiple things at once here within the outliner by holding Shift as you select multiple objects that get generated into your outliner. By the way, if you have created a scene and you don't want to keep looking at this grid, you can just select the grid right here, which will hide or enable your grid anytime you want to hide or enable that grid. And there we go. There's a basic scene made up of just a bunch of primitives. Wonderful. I have an object selected here. I just wanted to show you really quick that the tabs that we had here, I actually got rid of the modeling toolkit just to demonstrate this. The channel box and the attribute editor and the modeling toolkit, that's all up here actually as well. So that if for whatever reason you lose that information here, you can get it back up here. So here on the far right, we have the channel box. Here in the center, we have the attribute editor. And here on the far left, we have the modeling toolkit. I should go ahead and reset the workspace so I can get everything back to normal as it's supposed to be. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're missing like a tab here on the right, namely modeling toolkit or attribute editor or the channel box, then you can just reset that with resetting the workspace. But these things are also up here. So again, channel box is right here. Attribute editor is right here in the center. And here on the far left, we have the modeling toolkit. So if you ever wanted to find another way to open up these particular menus. Next thing I want to discuss is saving your projects. Because it's not as simple as just going up to File and then just pressing Save. Namely, what you need to be doing is going first to Project Window. Let's open this up. And we're going to select New right here. And we are going to give this project a name. In this case, I'm just going to call this Tutorial. And the location should be a location that's easy for you to access. So for me, I'm just going to make it a desktop, just to make it very easy for me to access. I'm not going to play around with any of this stuff here. I just named it. I put it in a location that's easy for me to access. And now I'm going to accept. Next thing I want to do is go to File, Set Project. If you've already done the project window step, most of the time Maya will automatically set the project for you. But for safety and just so that we know the process, we're going to select, again, File, Set Project, and we're going to select the folder we just created, which was the tutorial folder, and I'm going to select Set. Now we can go to File, now we can go to Save Scene As, and actually give this scene a name, in this case, tutorial_1, and now the project is officially, properly, really saved. If you ever wanted to go to the home menu again, you can always just click the home icon here at the top left. That brings us back to the home menu. Now that we actually have a project here that we have saved, we can see that it is here listed. So we can just open it up if we wanted to. And there's our work. You can also go back to home and just select go to Maya, and whatever we just exited out of is going to be right here for us again. So that's great. Let's actually go ahead and minimize Maya now. Let's go ahead and minimize Maya, and let's see what our desktop. We have Maya 2026. We also have this folder called Tutorial. This is the folder we just made when we went into, again, File, Project Window. This is the folder we created. This is the tutorial folder. Get into the mindset that when you're saving your work, you create a master folder first. Maya gives you a very easy way to create a master folder. Again, File, Project Window, New, give it a name, put it in a location you can find, and then accept. And then you say set project to that folder that you just created, and then you can save your work. That way, your work will be easy for you to take with you. So it will be easy for you to transfer from multiple machines, considering you're going to be working in machines at campus and personal machines from home. It's a very good idea to get into this mindset of saving your work via this method. So we actually go to the scenes folder. We can see that there is our tutorial 1 stuff. We can actually close this entirely. So Maya is now completely closed, and just double click tutorial 1 here, and we'll go through the process of letting Maya open up once again. Again, it usually takes a minute or two for Maya to open up, but when it does open up, we will see that our work is there exactly as we left it. And give it a second to load. It's going to take some time, especially if you have very busy scenes with lots of stuff in them. It's going to take a second for it to load. Let's move my camera around so I know that I can do stuff again. Perfect. Excellent. All right. let's discuss a couple of early pitfalls that you may run into as you explore Maya for the first few times. Namely, what happens if you're not seeing things in this gray view that we're in now. So, should be noted, there are some shortcuts to change from the default shaded mode. Some of you may possibly see things like this in wireframe mode. If you see things in wireframe mode, you can just press 5 on your keyboard in order to change it back to the default shaded mode. You can also press 4 in order to change it back into wireframe if you wanted to see it in wireframe mode. But I'm going to assume for your first time using this, you're probably going to want to see it in shaded view. So again, press 5 on your keyboard to change it back over into the default shaded view. These options are also here for you, by the way. So here we have the wireframe that I was just at. This right here is your default view. This is the one you want selected most of the time as you're working with Maya. And then we have a few other modes here that we'll get into in later videos. Finally, some of you, let's select this plane as an example. Some of you may potentially be in a scenario where you are not able to move the actual objects around. And you may be in a scenario where you only have access to like these little dots, these little vertices, or these or to edges or to faces. If you're in a scenario where you can't select the entire object, don't try to marquee select all of the points and move the object around this way. Instead, just press F8 on your keyboard to change this back into object mode. You were likely accidentally in component selection, so just press F8 to go back and forth from component selection to object mode, back to components. I'm going to unclick, back over to object. You can do that for any of these objects, and you can also do that for multiple objects at once, I believe. Yeah. For our purposes, for these first few videos, we're going to be working exclusively in object mode. We're not going to mess with component mode for now. So if you find yourself in component mode, get out of it just by pressing F8. There's also an option up here that lets you go back and forth from component mode into object mode. So you can select an object, go up here. This is to change to component mode. And then this one right here is the one you want. This is for object mode. That's our first video. I hope you enjoyed. Next time, we're going to look at shaders. Bye-bye.